Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Appian Community YouTube channel. My name is Kate Bonifaz. I'm a product evangelist here at Appian, and today we're going to be going over some of the highlights from our release webinar. And if you didn't catch it last week, we're going to drop a link here so that you can go ahead and catch up with that as well. The purpose of today's live stream, again, is to hit the highlights. And so we're going to select hot topics and some other really cool looking things so that, we can really up the discussion and talk about, what's coming. So as I just mentioned, right, please be interactive, right? We want to hear your thoughts and your questions on the content. I have my ears around LinkedIn and Discord and a bunch of different places, so I kind of know what you devs are thinking, but I would love to hear more in this live stream. All right, there are 4 parts to our agenda. Today, we're going to talk about Autoscale for a good bit, and then I'm going to play around with some AI features, and then we're going to look at some of the record type stuff and interface stuff. That was not exactly in order. But the last thing we're going to talk about is specifically more about record events-based stuff. So lots of cool stuff today. And yeah, let's get right into it. I am super stoked to bring onto the channel today one of our PMs, as well as a special guest from Nav Labs. So without further ado, I'm going to bring them on. Please come out, Matt and Tejas.
Hello.
Hey.
All right, so let's do some introductions. Get our blood pumping here. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves and give us some background, like your background with Appian, what you're doing, how long you've been with Appian, whatever you want, really. I'll pass it off to Matt first.
Sure. Hi, I'm Matt Bedker. I'm a principal at Nav Labs. I've been in the Appian space since 2015, which is always shocking to hear myself say. I've done consulting work for a number of different industries, a lot of experience in retail banking, most recently several years, again, weird to say that, in federal financial regulation. Been with Nav Labs and a number of different partners. If you're not familiar with Nav Labs, I'd encourage you to check us out at nav-labs.com. And if you haven't checked us out recently, we recently redid our website. A lot of cool stuff up there.
Love that.
So yeah, please check us out.
Great. Tejas, over to you.
Yeah, I'm Tejas. I'm one of the product managers on the Appian product management team. I've been working with Appian for more than 5 years now. I've worked with different parts of the product, so I'm happy to be here and answer all your questions. Recently, I've been working on the Autoscale feature that we're going to talk about today. So I'm really excited to present that to you guys specifically. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And, to give a little more context too into Matt's perspective, right? He didn't actually watch the webinar last week. So his thoughts are fresh. And again, like I said, I want you guys to put in your comments in the chat too. But yeah, we get that nice little perspective there. So let's just transition straight into it. Let's talk Autoscale, which has been, again, a hot topic around the different communities and whatnot. Tejas, I'll pass it over to you to kind of give maybe just an overview first.
Okay. So yeah, after the webinar, you might have asked yourself as well, like, what is Autoscale? Josh did a great job in the webinar. I really recommend you to watch that, which gets into the details. We have more content coming up as well, more of our PMs talking about it. But to put it in simple terms, Autoscale is a separately licensed service in Appian Cloud that will dynamically increase the process execution capacity based on the demand on your organizations. It can handle up to millions of process instances per hour. So we're talking really high volume. And we have seen in multiple organizations what Appian can, stretching the boundaries of what Appian can do. It is specifically designed for highly automated business processes that need to handle fluctuating workloads and to do it really fast. These are often called high throughput processes in the industry, and that's what we are going to target for. It's important to remember that Autoscale is currently primarily designed for unattended processes. This means that the processes that run without any human involvement, allowing them to finish.
Cool. Do we have any examples? I don't know, Matt, if you have any good ones off the top of your head, or Tejas, if you want to pick it up first.
The one that always comes to mind, I think Tejas is going to demo, is insurance claims or anything like that, high volume transactions that get batched nightly. So it's really common in different financial spaces, especially, I think. The one main use case for this, when I heard about it, that came to mind for me was something in retail banking, but that unfortunately would be where you have a really high volume of a process during the day, and then it kind of tapers off at night. But unfortunately, that one had some user inputs. But I think again, more of the nightly batch stuff in the financial space is going to be very, very useful for.
Yeah, and Matt, you touched upon really good points, right? Like and all of this can actually be done in Autoscale, like even if it's a user involvement, like I will definitely go through a demo where we can handle such use cases. We'll get into more details. But going back to what Kate, you mentioned about like where we see the most value with Autoscale, I think there are three main categories that we see Autoscale serving really well. The first one is straight through processing, where we generally have processes that eliminate manual intervention and complete transactions like data exchanges electronically right from start to finish. There are scheduled processing jobs that run in organizations, which include like business processes that are recurring, planned, and on a regular basis. These are often like end of the day, end of the month, or end of the year processes that you run at your organizations. And the third category, which I'm really excited about and which we see Appian being used a lot, is microservice or API orchestration. This mainly comprises of managing and coordinating the interactions between individual microservices within a distributed system. It's like being a conductor on an orchestra and ensuring all the musicians, in this case, the microservices, that are playing their parts in the correct sequence and harmony to create a great product. And we'll go through one of those examples that will particularly get
I
into
love that
microservice
visual too,
orchestration.
because when I used to teach the product, like, when people are like, what is Appian? We typically like to talk about like an orchestra and a director and stuff. So that's a great visual. Cool. Matt, I don't know if you have any other thoughts there. And
No.
again, live audience, if you have any questions, we have our expert right here. So go ahead and put in your questions in the chat. But maybe you can tell us more about like beta program results, because I know we ran one of those.
Yeah, sure. So let me just share my screen quickly to talk about like the beta program results that we had. Just to talk about in between, to give some more background and context. We were working on Autoscale for quite a bit of time now, and we were actually running a beta program from the beginning of this year with certain participants. We had around 7 to 8 participants that work with us, including partners and customers. So some of you who are on the call might have actually participated. So hi, and thank you for all your contributions to the beta program specifically. With the beta program, we had a lot of results that customers where they could see the value of Autoscale. Certain participants saw up to like 6 times more process instances per minute with Autoscale. In this case, the participant was processing about 2100 rows of data per minute, compared to when they were not using Autoscale, where they were doing 350 rows of data per minute. And this is just like moving data across different systems into a database using Appian. So the data exchange process that I talked about. The other use case that we looked at was where the customer saw up to 12 times faster processes, so dropping the latency of individual processes. In this case, like this was an insurance policy purchase request use case, where the customer was actually interested in quicker response in every process. And that's where they could see meeting their SLAs. We could use Autoscale to meet the demands when there were offers in their insurance policies and things like that. So, and they here, like I'm sharing the screen, and I'll also share the link in the chat about the beta program. This page is there in our community where you can see the results yourself, and also send your interest forms to us and let us know if you have any questions or are interested to try out Autoscale.
When you guys did the beta, you started out with like XL or double XL environments. How high did the scaling go in terms of like, I understand the mechanism is adding engines. How high did you guys go up in that?
Yeah, so I'll preface this by saying that the new process execution engine that this uses is completely different from the existing systems that you have. So what we would like our developers and architects specifically to consider is that with Autoscale, you can achieve the throughput that you want. So you can tell us what throughput you want. We can provision the capacity accordingly, and you don't have to worry about the site instance sizing and things like that. What Autoscale does is it provisions resources outside of your EC2 instance or the site node that you're working on, so that we don't have to worry about what is going on the site itself. So your users will not see slowness, your users will not see the site being down, let's say, so there won't be any impact on your site itself. And that's one of the characteristics of Autoscale as well, where we provide this isolation and the ability to scale independently of your site. So again, to reiterate, we don't want to worry about like the scalability of how many compute resources you're getting, but you just need to tell us what is the expected throughput you're expecting from the system.
And we do have a question in the chat. Thanks, Jesse. It just says, hi, Matt. We'll get the question up in a second, but I'm going to start to read it. Let's say I have an API that kicks off a process and it receives an average of 10 requests a minute, but suddenly received 500 calls at once. How long does it take Autoscale to kick in?
Yeah, that's a great question, and a perfect use case for Autoscale as well. Like that is what Autoscale is built for. We generally see customers having an average demand across their day-to-day operations, but then suddenly there is like a surge in their demand because of various reasons. It can be some technical fault that like blocked some of the requests. It could be certain offers that you run, but that's where Autoscale can impact you immediately. It really depends on what the use case is, on what your process is trying to do, and to basically judge how quickly Autoscale will come into picture. But it is in the order of like minutes, where we quickly respond to the requests and can provide the resources to serve those demands.
Seems pretty quick to me. I'm no Autoscale expert though. Awesome. Okay, I'm chomping at the bit here. I would love to see some type of demo at this point. If other questions come in, we're happy to answer those. But yeah, Tejas, can you kind of show us some magic here?
Yeah, perfect. So you see the process model now? Yeah, awesome. So we have the insurance policy use case that I was talking about. Like this is one of the process models that we have taken as a guiding use case to handle claims for a particular organization. So you can see in this case, the customers built this process model to like start a process that handles claims. It gets data from various other systems. In this case, you can see it is hitting Salesforce, it is hitting multiple like AWS services to get relatable data with the claims. And then it is also validating, running some rules on it, doing some fraud detection on external system as well. And then based on that, it is making a judgment whether the claim should be made, if the claim is successful or not. And you might have seen in your real life as well, right? Like when you submit a claim request, sometimes those are approved fairly quickly, and you would expect that those should not take a human to interact with it. But in some cases, like the claims are complex and it requires certain human interaction to be taken, and somebody to actually look at the documents, look at what is going on, and then approve the case. So this entire process model is basically doing the end-to-end workflow from submitting the claim to the point where we are actually making the payment to the customer. And it involves like an exception where an escalation takes place, where you are actually taking a look at what happened in a legacy system. A user is actually looking at this particular task. So this particular process model, and Matt, you mentioned about certain processes that will have users. So we can definitely leverage Autoscale in those situations as well by using the start process smart service. And in this case, we actually have a new version of the smart service that I'll quickly get into later. So I'm happy to talk about that as well. But just to stay on this right now, like we're seeing that like this particular process model can use Autoscale. And the way to do that is just to go to the process model properties and just enable autoscaling. It's as simple as that. There's no other changes to be done in the process model. Most of these things are provided to you. We have certain design validations in the process modeler. When you enable Autoscale, we also change the process model palette on the left-hand side to make sure that the nodes that are available are compatible with Autoscale. We are going to add more nodes going forward. So user input tasks and things like that will also be added in the future with Autoscale as well. So it's not like it's only made for unattended processes. So as simple as that, like we enable Autoscale on this process model. You'll see a short little icon here that represents that this particular process model is leveraging Autoscale. So that's neat. And then I can quickly go and start the process for debugging. And you won't see any difference, right? This is a typical Appian process model experience. I'll get into the monitoring experience a bit, but this is the process running successfully. And not just from an execution perspective, we have added more features on the monitoring side. So we have a new Autoscale process activity tab where you can see and monitor all your Autoscale processes. So in this case, we are seeing that we have ran our processes. I ran a few before this demo as well that you can see. You can look at the short stint, and I'll maybe zoom out a bit into our 7-day range to see how many processes were started. And you can see on this demo site, like we had a bunch of processes started, and you can see the trend in the graphs as well. So which is also a new feature that we're launching for Autoscale processes. Then going into the process instance itself, you can look at the new features that we've added, like the time in queue in this case, the process duration. We have seen customers doing this by themselves by writing the node times in their database, which we think is really something that Appian should provide from out of the box. And that's what we are doing. So in the monitoring view, now you can see the process duration by itself. We have this new concept of the time spent in queue, because while using Autoscale, you would have a time where we would basically look at a queue and then scale accordingly. So you can also monitor how much time your processes are taking in queue and make adjustments to your architecture accordingly. So that's also something that we are excited about for you guys to use. And then going back to the process monitoring piece, we have new process history tabs as well. So you can see the process history now is organized by nodes. We don't have those events and long running history anymore. You can also see the duration of the node itself here, so that you don't have to write these yourself again. And then you can always go into the process variables and see what changed, what happened in the process over time, and things like that. So all of these are new features specifically for Autoscale processes, and we're
really
excited
cool
to bring
stuff.
them to you.
Before we again go and talk about like the Subprocess or the smart service stuff,
Yeah.
We do have one question, so that should pop up in the screen in a second, but I'll start reading it. It says, "Good morning, Appian team. Let's say I dedicate Autoscale to one process model. This PM has many sub-processes. Will Autoscale pick these sub-processes as well?"
Yeah, so for every process that you want Autoscale to be used on, you need to enable the model itself, the autoscaling on that model itself. While using the start process smart service, if you are running a child process which is not using Autoscale, that will run as expected in our standard engines right now. So that's another neat characteristic of our Autoscale feature is you can have a process that uses Autoscale interact with a process that is not, and vice versa. So you don't have to worry about like handling or creating different models in this case. You can just use a start process smart service to start processes in either of those modes, basically. So yeah, so until to answer the question directly, until and unless you enable the Autoscale on those child processes or process models, those won't run with Autoscale.
I haven't gotten my hands on this yet. Does the modeler detect, like, will it like call out if like a child model is not auto-scaled from within the Autoscale model, or if it's like, will it detect that?
That's great feedback. It does not, because in certain cases, we do intend, like the developer can intend the process, the child process, to not use Autoscale. But that's a good feedback. Like we'll definitely take into consideration for our design guidance. We have a neat design guidance feature where we give our developers those warnings or certain recommendations where we can
that's
add
the
these things. So thanks for that.
just how do I audit where I'm using Autoscale, especially. I think that.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Cool. Yeah, no, I love that. Kind of similar thing, another hot topic, and we alluded to it earlier, is this whole smart service, smart, I can't say it right now. You know what I'm talking about. When you use that versus...
I had it yesterday, but you don't...
What?
You nailed it yesterday.
I know, I did, but it's fine. Matt, what are your thoughts on, this kind of stuff?
One of my best interview questions is changing that I've had for a really long time. I've always asked about memory allocation between subprocesses versus start process, and now it's changing a little bit with the synchronous option for the start process. I understand, Tejas, you can't activity chain into these, so it's still somewhat asynchronous, but I still think this is a really, really powerful tool for making sure we're managing memory appropriately.
Let's
Yeah,
rewind though and maybe rehash from the start, right?
Sorry.
What are the changes that are coming? Like, Tejas, you want to go over just
yeah.
like what is new and what's exciting, and maybe you can show it again too. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So as I was saying, like I think just to take a step back, as I said, like we are launching a new version of the Start Process Smart Service, which, as any of the smart services, like once you take it from the process model palette, you now have this new UI for the smart service. Like earlier, you would have those inputs with process parameters, and then you would go to this like place where you have to search for the process model and things like that. But now we have this neat sale UI that we can quickly search the process model from and like set it up just as you would do, let's say in the write record smart service if you have used that. And we are adding the synchronous mode of operation for the start process smart service. So as you might have known from before, like the start process smart service is mainly used for the engine allocation to like manage it, optimize and the engine capacity overall in the existing engines, as Matt mentioned. But we didn't have a synchronous option. Like all processes that were running in the start process smart service, the child processes were running asynchronously. And now we're adding a synchronous option to that. And this will be available both for Autoscale as well as the standard engine. So this does not apply to only processes that use the Autoscale feature or the capability. So you can use this for your existing processes as well. I'm really excited for customers to use this instead of the subprocess as well. Like this will be a great feature to go ahead with. There are certain usage considerations that we have documented of when this should be used, when this is not. There are a bunch of documents and resources around that as well. So we can get into that. But yeah, I'm really excited to get this out. The new version also has the outputs where you can have the process info returning back from a synchronous standpoint as well. So in this case, in the example that I was talking about, like you would want the user input task or the user approval before you send the payment. So the process will have to be paused until then. And that's why we are running this particular process model as a child process, which is running synchronously. So when we are selecting this, the child process must be complete before the process continues. And these are the use cases that we are trying to address along with the new version of Smart Service.
Yeah, no, and I would love to hear more comments from like the chat, and Matt. But yeah, so to summarize kind of what you just said, it seems like this is really the direction we're going in, right? And some of the concerns or comments made that I've seen out there are like, okay, so yeah, when do we use subprocess?
Yeah. Yeah, I think just to summarize, yeah, we are going in a direction where we want to simplify the ways of starting processes in Appian. I know that we have different ways currently we do it, but we are slowly transitioning into this way, and we are currently in that stage of transition where we're releasing this first increment of the smart service, which will come with more like advancements. So right now, we already have a documentation around when do we use the smart service versus the sub process. I would say that like if you want to do engine allocation and if you're not using activity chaining in the child process, in most cases, you should have the you should be able to use the start process smart service, a new version of it instead of the sub process, because it has both the synchronous and the asynchronous mode now, same as the sub process. So the usage that of activity chaining that we have seen in the field is where you are basically chaining to the smart service into the child process partially and then returning data from the middle of the process. So you would want to have, let's say, something like 3 nodes and then return data back to the parent process. Those are the kind of use cases we are currently not supporting. But if you have the entire process being activity chained, that's basically just running it as synchronously as possible. So that those use cases are supported, and we would recommend you use the start process smart service in the synchronous
Cool.
mode. In
We
that
do
case.
have 2-ish questions in the chat. The one is just a normal question, and the other question is in 3 parts. I'll go with the cautious question first. In the case of synchronous, will it still be on a different engine?
No, so yeah, so when you are using it in the not using Autoscale, it will have the same characteristic as the current engine. So it will be used on a
Okay,
different
cool.
engine.
And then I'll pop into the second question, which again may come in pieces. But hi, let's say I have a parent process that initiates 200 sub-processes, each running for about 5 minutes. Some of these sub-processes include user input tasks, while others do not. Since the autoscale feature can only be enabled for processes without UI tasks, should I enable autoscaling for the parent process that triggers the 200 subprocesses? Or is it sufficient to enable autoscaling only for the subprocesses without UI tasks? Very specific question. I love it. You guys are doing great out there.
I think so. Just to like maybe take a step back, I think the point about like using autoscale is to use it where you think you can get the most throughput or the most benefits of scalability. So I would definitely say that like generally we don't recommend that if you have 200,000 processes, I don't know what the number was, but let's say you have 200,000 processes that you want to run, even if they are like sub processes starting from a parent or something like that. Do all those 200,000 processes go to a user input task? That's the first question. Like if only maybe 10% of them actually need a user input, we would recommend that like in just creating another sub process from those and treat it as exceptions. But if all of those 200,000 need a user input task, I would recommend that we don't use autoscale for those use cases, because then, or another thing is like, what if you can break those two processes, right? Like what if you can break the human interactions into a separate sub process and then run the parts which is mostly like very transactional, or you're doing a lot of like data transformations or data writes. So if you have like 90% of the processes that are doing a bunch of things across systems with only one user input task at the end, that's a great use case. So split that off into a sub process or into a separate process model, and then run it using the start process smart service at the end. In that case, I would definitely recommend using autoscale for all those 200,000
All right, we have one last question, but before I think we're going to move on to the next segment. But Jesse came back again for governance purposes. Is there a way to get a list?
I didn't say it last time. Hi, Jesse.
Is there a way to get a list of all the PMs that use autoscale in an environment?
Right now we don't, but that's something that we have on our roadmap. We definitely know that customers would like to see that. So yeah, in 24.4 you won't have that, but we're definitely planning it in the future.
Nice. Yeah, this is all really great feedback. Okay. Thank you, Tejas, for all of that awesome autoscale stuff. And if you guys have more questions, we'll have time at the end of the live stream to answer more. So go ahead and trickle them in, and I will address them once I get a second. But again, we're going to head into the next segment, which includes some AI stuff, some interface stuff, and then a bunch of record type, updates, not stuff. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen just to show you kind of the overview of what I will be going through. I like to use this order fulfillment app that includes, campaigns where, there's lots of information that's connected to customers and orders. There's even like a reporting page here that we'll touch on later. But the first thing that I'm actually going to hop over to is a plain old interface where I'm going to be using a Copilot for developers. Now, Matt, I don't know if you have any experience with AI or Copilot yet. I know, like you said, you're doing a lot of Fed stuff, so maybe not yet.
Yeah, I have not gotten too deep into the Copilot stuff, no.
That's okay. It's so cool, though. I love, like we have different flavors of AI Copilot. You'll find a lot of it that is associated with like Process HQ-based stuff, which, we're really trying to synthesize all of our data and find, better outcomes for our processes and our different stuff. But AI Copilot for developers is exactly what it sounds like. They're tools to help you develop faster and perhaps easier. As we all know, tools can be great sometimes, and sometimes they won't do exactly what you want. But I'm going to demonstrate for you guys what this can look like. So this is, again, AI Copilot for developers, specifically in the generating a form from a PDF. So I have two here. I have a purchase request form, which really goes with my use case, again, with this order stuff. I'm going to generate instructions with this too. And yeah, we'll see. It's a very simple form, so I'm not expecting anything too crazy. But so far, yeah, we have, just some interesting color blocking. We have different titles, different sections, a lot of different types. I said a lot of different types, and then I chose two integer ones. But there's a bunch of different input fields. honestly, this is pretty simple. I could probably do this relatively quickly. You know, I'm a senior developer, but it does also create a map of data for us. So that's interesting. I'm going to actually run this again with a different PDF, just so that we can kind of see, and I might just refresh here. Hold on one second. So that, yeah, we can see maybe some of the more dynamic things it can do. So I'm going to now upload an insurance form. I used this for the webinar last week for our little, GIF demo there. But you'll see here, again, yes, I like the instructions. We'll see that we have a section for, policyholder information. And it's relatively quick. I don't know, what you guys think relatively, like, what is quick.
No, that's quick.
Yeah, I think it's quicker than me. Like,
Yeah.
we have a lot of the same stuff from the first section, text, integer, paragraph, whatever. But I'm going to call out this section right here. I have a choice list, which is kind of cool. I have a date field. And then down here, yes, it did it. So it was a little confused by the signature field. So it both gave me a paragraph option and a signature field. But it was like smart enough to kind of pick up on some of that stuff. Matt, initial thoughts? Aegis?
Right?
Yeah, what's up?
It's a good plug for the signature field that we launched recently as well.
It's really cool. And actually, I did a hackathon with one of our customers recently, and one of them did a lot of AI with signature fields, and it was really, really cool stuff.
Does this pick up like character limits? Does it like look at how long the field is on the PDF and be like, this is how long I think the character validation should be? Are we not there yet?
I don't know.
Okay.
That sounds like really great feedback. It does pick up like different, so not this one doesn't do it, but sometimes it'll pick up instructions and it'll put it like underneath the field saying like, oh, make sure you do this. But I don't know if it does validations specifically.
That's the thing I would end up spending the most time on, like dragging that out of a client of like, all right, how long should this field be? And so if you could, anything saving step there would be pretty sweet. This is also very helpful, but.
Yeah, cool. There is a question in the chat, and I think I know what it's getting at, but it says, for record type, are you going to provide records sync configurable multiple times a day? We're going to cover, a bunch of the different features around syncing, so I do believe we'll talk about that as well. Here's another question, and it's from JS_YT. Does the AI handle dynamic fields like multiple dropdowns or conditional inputs in forms? That's a good question. Yeah, what I showed before is we have a choice list, and if I don't have it pulled up, but the PDF that I got this from, it was just like a simple list of check boxes. So it was able to take that and then make this choice list field or this drop down from it. So I wouldn't say it's that far of a stretch, but I don't know specifically. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that either.
No, I'll also try it out. I don't know if it will it will depends on how the choice list is represented in the PDF as well. I would assume it will multiple checkboxes. Yeah, so I would assume that what it is done in this example, I think that it will be done the same way for now.
Yeah, we'll have to go to our AI specific PMs and get into their brains to see a little more. But yeah, that is the PDF to form generation. I think it's pretty cool. It could be really helpful, depending on what your requirements are. Again, senior dev, I'm kind of fast at building, I would like to say, but yeah, I couldn't make a drop down that quickly, but yeah. Let's see, does it store documents? Sorry, I'm reading another question. I did not say it. Does it store documents like a library so you can ask it questions about it? So I guess your question is like, does it store the document that I'm uploading here? That is a really good question. My inclination is to say that it doesn't necessarily store it somewhere for future reference, but I could be wrong on that front.
Yeah, it doesn't do it for this one, but we do have other features where you can leverage that capability, right? Like we have the document chat. Like that.
Yeah. So you could upload this document into that other library to be used for AI features as well. Cool. Okay, I'm going to now hop over to other interface features. So I'm going to go to this page for reporting, and you'll see some of the features that we're going to talk about. Okay, there is another question though, so we'll try to address that first. It says, what happens if the PDF form has embedded images or tables? Okay, that's a great question. From my understanding of the product so far, we're working on getting images a little better, but tables, I think it depends on the purpose of the table or what type of table you're specifically talking about. If it's something that we can mock up easily, just for visual purposes or for data entry, maybe. But from what I've heard from my PM friends, we're working on it and it's getting there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So my interface, this is the front end. Now I'm going to hop over to the interface designer so we can see, where we can actually configure things. And I'm going to call out, I think, 3 or so things here. My first favorite one, Matt may disagree, but I really like this card group layout. It's really cool because, where I have struggled in the past to make maybe some of my cards be the same height or like size according to different screens, this card group layout is really cool where you can add different components to the cards. I have 2 different charts here, but you can use a variety of different things within the card layout, and it will shrink, it will change how many columns there are. Maybe not ideal if you want a very specific amount of columns and whatnot, but I really like it. And if you watched the webinar last week, it was like this really cool imagery of like, housing listings on like Zillow or something. But yeah, Matt, what are your thoughts on this card group layout?
My only, you put me on the spot. I don't want to be uncharitable, but no, you can't control the number.
Ask what you want, Matt.
You can't control the number of columns or rows that it will spit out regardless of the number of cards you have. So it will handle the scaling, but it won't handle that layout. And again, maybe I've just been going back and forth with a client about the specific layout of cards recently.
Fair.
Like, I'll be biased, but that was a little bit of a concern for using it. But I think like for more stuff where you're looking, I'd be interested. I haven't got a chance to look at the release webinar yet. So
fair. Okay.
That housing grid could be really interesting. I think if you had like a larger number of cards, I think it's kind of the medium where I'm a little curious about how it'll behave. But
it is hard when you have a use case that you've been fighting with. You're like, this almost is exactly what I need.
Yes.
But yeah, those business use cases are great. We love to hear them so that we can continue to develop things.
Yeah, our developers, we know that love cards, right? Like I think this is something that like everybody loves to see updates on. So like our interface designer definitely has those different ways you can change the devices that you're looking at. But this is I think this is what the new card layout does is basically you don't have to worry about it. It will automatically be responsive to the screen. And specifically for use cases like the housing one that we talked about, it could be inventories where specifically our customers who are using mobile a lot. I think that's where, like, if you're looking through an inventory, if you're looking through some of the cases there on the card layout, I think it would be great to address that.
Very cool. All right, the next thing that I kind of want to show, and I'm going to go back to the screen and refresh it for the sake of demonstrating this. If you look, you see that the KPI is loaded immediately, and then both charts and this grid down here loaded separately. And I am happy to report that that is as simple as a checkbox. If I can just narrow down to just my read-only grid here, it's a checkbox on any 3 of these components to load the grid data in the background or chart data, whatever data it is you want. And so the beauty of this, I think, again, this is my biased opinion, is that if you have something that is super data rich and takes much longer to load, it's not going to prevent your site page from loading, but it may just take a couple extra seconds to load.
And as a PM, I can attest to the fact that like this is something that we were struggling to get as well. I think customers need this a lot, specifically when you have like larger dashboards like broken down into different sections and you want to quickly look at something and the entire dashboard takes a long time to look at. So I think this is going to be a great feature for our customers.
On the very operational side, I'm very excited that it will be much easier to explain health checks of like, why is this dashboard taking so long to load? It's like, well, actually this specific component loads a little bit slower, but everything else is faster and you can get to your data. I'm very excited. That would have saved me a lot of time in meetings. So I'm very excited to see this one rolled out.
Yeah, that's good perspective. I love that. And it's it feels like such a simple thing for us devs, a little checkbox, but it goes a long way.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. So the last thing I'm going to point out on interfaces before we, zoom on over to some more record type based stuff is we have this new little heading component, which, lots of us, we're relatively familiar with, the rich text, field. And this heading component just gives us a little more flexibility in that regard. I don't have too much to make it nice and whatever, but I think it's exciting just to offer a little more flexibility.
This is extremely specific, but I'm here, so I'm going to ask. Does it, so like for rich text, does this heading component mimic the font size of like a record header? So like if you set it to large, it would use the same font type as like the default record?
That is a very specific question, and I'm just clicking through things to see. I know we have lots of different options, like font weight. I think it's configured so that you can get it that way. I don't know if it necessarily has a drop down that says please be the same as record title.
I'm trying to get a bold rich text to be the exact same size as a record header. They're a little bit different, so that's why I'm curious if this is going to swoop in and save me. It
sounds like it could.
I think it might. Yeah.
Let me know. Yeah. Okay. Well, we have another question, and Tejas, you may have better perspective on this than me. This guy has a lot of questions, and I'm loving it. Is Appian introducing a feature that auto-suggests graphs, charts, and KPIs based on record or database data?
Auto-suggest. I don't think so. It's been planned, but we'd love to understand like where you would want to see those being suggested in the first place. Like, I think it will be a good way to definitely speed up development. Like, we love that. I think we are looking at ways of quickly. I don't know if you've looked at like the Appian Composer and things like that. Like we have new features where we are specifically focusing on low-code developers or like getting the apps ready quickly. So I think those where these features will definitely fit. If we have already data ready and like if there are any particular KPIs, I've seen certain demos around it. But yeah, I think we're working towards some of those features. I don't have particular details of what is available right now.
I think the only thing that comes to mind for me are some of the new like Process HQ based charts, reports, and KPIs. Because I'm like 98% sure that, yes, we do actually have that. That was part of this release. Not that we're going to highlight it later, but I think we do have that on the Process HQ side. So yeah, I would love to see that spread out more, maybe, again, for more of us developers throughout the product, not just, in Process HQ. But great questions, loving them. I'm going to now transition right before record types. I'm just going to make a pit stop in our expression editor. And before I do that, I am going to go over here to our test case. Okay, and so we are all familiar at this point with the fact that, if you have a rule input or data that can change, right? We have test inputs that typically you want to use the set as default and test so that, when you reopen it, you're not getting errors and that your interface works. Well, I am exceedingly happy to report that we have similar functionality in our expressions now. And so if I go over here and I click into this specific test case, you'll see now that we have a checkbox for enabling a default test case. I just think that's cool and useful.
Yeah. No, I think this is like, specifically as a developer who has worked on a lot of refactoring or like updates to existing applications, it's great to see like when you have an expression which is really long and then you don't have like the test values in place, right? When you make just one line change and then you have to go and like copy paste the test values from somewhere else. And then this is great to just like will speed up the development time, specifically for these kind of changes, right? Like if you're updating an expression or something.
Yeah, definitely. All right, cool. We made our pit stop, and now I'm going to roll straight into some record type based stuff. The first one I'm actually going to touch on is an update to our record list stuff. So I actually made a fake record type to mimic my campaign record type. You'll see that the data between the two are almost identical. I just wanted to add in a Boolean field, and I think I also added in the priority field. And so if I'm going to use tempo here for a second, just for visual purposes. Okay, this is what our record list looks like for this normal campaign record type. And then if I go to the version for the new one, this is the new modern sleep version of it. And what you'll notice is for priority, where you have options low, medium, and high, it will automatically give you these cool colored tags. Additionally, if you have created on and created by and modified on and modified by fields, it will automatically combine those people with those dates. So that's really cool. And obviously the is active Boolean. It's showing all checks right now, but I swear there are some X's somewhere. So it will automatically kind of add in some of the more modern feel to your record list.
Yeah, this really, like, I think especially again I was reiterating our like commitment to speeding up delivery. I think especially for demos, like if you're quickly building a record type, this is great to have the first increment out, like everything formatted well without having to do anything.
Yeah.
Cool. I see it, Jesse. I see your comment in the chat, and I just want to highlight it here. She said, "We also need the inverse. We need multiple test cases for UIs." I can't agree more. That's great feedback.
I wasn't totally thinking that.
We're all thinking that, I think. But someone said it. Good job. Thank you for that. All right, great. So I'm going to move on now I'm going to skip to my product record type here. One of the new updates is actually, I lied. I'm going to go back to my test campaign so we can spot the difference. Okay. We have under the source type, name, and table. This is a boring, MariaDB table, so it doesn't really show me too much. But if I go back again to this product record type, we now see that this one has a different source. And if I click on it, it'll actually bring me straight to this expression rule that is modifying an integration response, which is, I think, really cool. I keep saying things are really cool. I'm just excited, guys. But that's just, again, a small change that I think may help with navigation purposes. Anything from you guys?
Less clicks is always better.
Yeah. Okay, and as promised from earlier, we do want to talk about some of the sync stuff. Don't say that too fast. But I'm going to go to my order submission record type here. As you can see, the data fabric is strong with this one, right? We have many different types of sources, different flavors, different connections, what have you. And we have a robust list of both, data source fields as well as custom fields. And yeah, I'm just going to pop over to several places here. But the first one is sync options. So one of the new features is this checkbox for recovering smart service syncs. I can't remember, Matt, if you said you were excited about that or
I think the timing, I was excited about the parameterization, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And I'm having a brain moment here. Okay, so that, is one of the sync bits. If I go back to the data model and I go to the sync filters, okay, so that's another sync portion, right? We have, our other stuff, right? So we have sync options for scheduling full syncs. We have keeping data available at high volumes, which is great. And then one of the brands making new things for 24.4 is being able to filter by relationship. And so what I've done here for this one is I've gone to the campaign-related record, and I have decided to filter out my canceled campaigns from the list, which is kind of cool.
This gets you a lot closer to an actual view, right? If you've got if you don't have a very denormalized, this lets you be less denormalized, which I think is really, really cool. It gets kind of back to more. I'm an old man, so everything in Appian is CDTs until like a couple months ago for me. But I think this gets you closer to having that granular control of like, I only want comments of this particular type, but I can get away with having one comment table for a large application. I think this is really cool.
Definitely something, even though like it seems like it has a nice UI, it's really powerful actually. So cool.
That's really good to hear, Matt. Yeah.
All right, the last thing, again, this is maybe a smaller thing, but I particularly like it because it, was something that I wanted in the past, and they listened, they did it, right? If I go into this order status user filter, I now can designate multiple default user filters. Again, it sounds so simple, but it made my dev heart happy.
Yeah, and I think so. A lot of us like actually do this on the user filters, right? Like user sync filters. So I think, yeah, it's great like to have this by default on the developer side as well.
Okay, I swear that's all I wanted to go over for both the little interface updates and maybe some of the record type updates. The last thing I want to do is record type related, but it is something that I get excited about because it is related to maybe some of the record events based stuff, which I hear is helping a lot of people in regards to audit trails. So I'm actually going to just click out of a lot of these tabs because there's too many tabs. If I go to my campaign record though, this is going to be my main record type where I would have generated all of these different associated record events, record types. And so we can see that we have, event history, event type, reply thread, and subscriber. And so record events are still relatively new, but in the past couple releases, we've gotten to know about event history, which is the different or like these are the rows of data that will actually capture when something happened and what happened and a comment of what happened. It's this nice robust set of data for us. Notice that it's related to the event type. Event type is just the list of which events are available for you. And one of those events is exclusively commenting, which is relatively new as well, which leads us to the reply thread. The reply thread record type allows us to capture threaded replies from different events or comments. And then finally, brand new to 24.4, we do have a subscriber record type. And so that's kind of what I'm going to frame this around today. I'm going to go back to my campaigns here to my summary view. And you'll see on the right-hand side here, we have this button to subscribe. I'm going to click it. Great success. The next button to the right of it will actually allow me to then modify the subscribers as well. And so if you did look at that tooltip or the pop-up message, it says that, emails are actually what's going to happen for the people who subscribe to these records in the record type, right? So I'm going to open up the interface so we can kind of see that there as well. If I go into the event list field, this will allow me to see the configuration. And before I get too far in the interface itself, well, actually, I'll probably just wrap it up here and then go back a step to ease maybe some concerns, right? The only thing you need to modify in order to enable this is obviously to have the record types existing and connected to your main record type. And then this notification URL is the only thing that you really need to set up. And there are lots of great instructions here. And you'll just use URL for record, and then you'll designate, which view you want to see. I'm so sorry if you can hear that beeping. So again, to talk about maybe concerns. Well, Kate, I haven't actually done record events. Great news. You can just generate it and all 4 of these will pop up for you. But Kate, I generated in the last release and I don't have the subscriber record type. Luckily, this record type is pretty simple and straightforward. So you can just construct the record type, connect the relationships, and then go back to your main record type, hit edit, and just add it in at the bottom. Once you do that, you can use it straight away. I know I had to update this environment or this record type to do that for this demo. And yeah, it took me maybe 10 minutes at most just to, create and set up and tweak things to get it enabled. Go ahead.
Yeah, I specifically I love this because I have seen multiple customers or even Appian itself having a watcher field created on a record type and having a custom development around having a watcher. So this I think will be a great another example of how we are trying to speed up delivery customers and providing value on every record type as well.
Yeah, cool. Just for my sanity's sake, I just want to tie this in again. We have this new tab for events, record events, and we talked about the audit trail earlier, and so this really does help set you up for Process HQ. And, you know, even if you're not using Process HQ, you know, I just wanted to rehash maybe like the benefit or just like overall define Process HQ for a better picture, right? And so it really tries to combine the latest technologies of our data fabric, our process mining, our machine learning, our the AI-based stuff, and it's supposed to give our business users the power to explore data and really like make improvements easily from the different KPIs, the charts, the insights, all the different features that we've been adding into Process HQ since Appian World last year. It's just really like a nice robust set of tools for business to devs to really analyze and improve your processes. Because we're a process company. That's what we're about.
Yeah. And like I would like to also add that I think the more data we create, the more data we add to data fabric insights or like to Process HQ as well. I think that's where we see more value. So the customers are using it or customers are not using it. Like I would recommend that you add more data to be like queried in Process HQ as well, like using these record events and stuff, features like that. So in the future, like when you go back and see how your processes are functioning,
Yeah,
I think that's
and
when
we'll
you'll see
link
the real
the
value of it.
Academy Online little course so that if you want to learn more, you can go to that. But yeah, I think now's a great time. I'll look for questions, and once we've addressed the questions in the chat, we'll wrap it up because I don't really have anything to show anymore. Okay, we have a question. Great. Is there an option to configure default subscribers for the new record created based on the condition, perhaps depend on record/case status? I think that's great feedback. I don't think that's in the works currently, but I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm also not sure like if it's in it's currently there, but I think it definitely makes sense like having some default subscribers.
Cool.
I mean, the subscriber stuff's going to be in the database to where you could interact with it on record creation yourself, right? As a developer, like write a do some kind of process that would add them in as support of record creation.
Yep. Yep, that's the developer.
Yes, so.
No, but this has been fantastic. And in lieu of no questions I'm seeing currently in the chat, I will wrap things up here. I would like to thank Tejas and Matt so much for joining me today. This has been so fun. A special thanks to NavLabs too. Yeah, I'm so grateful for any opportunity I get to, like meet other devs, especially in our partners and customer organizations. So yeah, thank you guys for coming on. For those of you out there, if you enjoyed this live stream, please give us a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that stuff, right? If you have ideas for future live streams, please let us know. We love great ideas. The next live stream we're going to have is on December 19th. It's kind of like our end of the year wrap bit. So look forward to seeing us there and maybe some quirky things. We do also have an Autoscale course coming up soon. So that's in Academy Online. And then there will also be a video on our YouTube channel for like an overview of Autoscale. So again, thanks Tejas for all the great stuff today, but we are also going to have more information available to you outside of just the release notes so that everyone can get up to speed with Autoscale stuff.
Yeah, do watch out for that video. I think that's great and gives more insight into Autoscale as well.
Soon too, that was not a great transition, it's fine. If you recall in October, right, we had our first of our UX Design Lab live streams with Appian experts. And while we're rapidly approaching the end of the year, that means that we're looking for the next one. And so the next lab will be on January 16th and focused on color usage in interfaces. Okay, so good colors, bad colors. We want to see it all so we can really like learn together, right? We are open to collect submissions starting today. So you'll find the link to the submission form in the chat, and there'll be a little more information too. And keep an eye on community and other social channels moving forward, again, for any updates in regards to that. Like LinkedIn. I'm posting to LinkedIn all the time. So, Okay. Beside my shameless plug, again, thank you so much for joining us today. I really enjoyed this live stream. And yeah, of course.
Thank you for having us, Kate.
Have a great day, guys.